Hello and welcome to my channel. This is Chemaissem with you. The topic that we're going to discuss today is why do people fall back into the trap of their old ways after they've struggled and tried so hard to create new tools and new attributions to remove the old habits that they no longer want. The reason why this happens is because we start off with, growing up through the environment, the values, the belief systems that we've been taught over the years. And by doing so, we, at an unconscious level, take on board all of these attributions and create it to be who we are right now. And the moment that we wake up to ourselves and realize that these habits and these unwanted thought systems we have is no longer serving us in our current life, so we try to do something to remove it, seeing a therapist, doing self-help through reading or healing and meditation and whatnot. There is a big range out there. But the thing is that the clients come back to me and tell me, look, Sarah, I did such a great job. I reached, my target. I'm doing great. But something happened where I fall back into my old way. Why is that? And that's the interesting part. You see, when you're in the process of healing and changing your old habits, it starts off as a 7-day process, because your old habit, let's call it map A, for instance, and that's in your mind. Over the years, they're proteins that have been built in your mind to believe who you are at that time. When you come to interrupt that, you're creating map B in your mind. Now, when you create map B in your mind, you're creating new proteins. You're putting more energy in that map. And then the more energy that you possess in that map to interrupt the other one that you don't want, let's call it, for instance, anger that you're having, or you're yelling more often, or your health, your binge eating, whatever it may be. So when you look at map B, the more you create proteins and interfere and interrupt that behavior from map A over time, those proteins grow into other stems which look like lollipops in the cells of the body. And then from that interruption, and you work harder and harder, it creates something they call in science like mushrooms. They look like mushrooms. Now, you already have all those established in map A. And map B, you're creating this. So you're putting a lot more energy in map B to create what you want. Now, this is a 7 to 21 day cycle, right? But you need to do this cycle 6 times to equal 128 days. The reason being, the moment that you notice changes at 7 days, you may slouch down and go back to your old ways. So then you got to push that extra mile. And then you get to 14 days. And the moment you get to 14 days, you're interrupting that behavior and going back through to your map B. Now, the moment you're able to do that, you reach out to 21 days. That's perfect. You've reached your goal set. Now, what happens? Something goes wrong in the environment. Something triggers you. So you have 2 options in that moment. And these are your options. Map A is your old habitual map. Can begin to steal everything from map B that you created so hard and you worked so hard for, and it starts to steal all the proteins that you worked so hard to create here, and it starts to steal them and put them in map A. Now, when that happens, map A is building the old habit double and triple, because all the energy that you put in creating the new one is moving to the old one. Now, the other second option is the moment that you feel that trigger at 21 days happen, you can realize and accept it and tell yourself, wow, I'm realizing the trigger. I'm very consciously aware of it, and begin to steal everything in the proteins of map A and put them in map B. The moment this happens, you're overriding map A, and map B becomes your default map in your life. Now, when this happens, map A invincibly is still there in your unconscious mind, but it's been interrupted so many times that map B becomes your default map. When this happens, you need to interfere and interrupt that behavior for how do I mention this? Like a 6 cycle. So 7 days, 14 days, 21 days. You need to do this in a 6 cycle daily. How to equal 128 days. The reason being is the moment your brain can do something over a course of 128 days, your unconscious mind overrides completely the old habitual thoughts and behaviors and issues that you no longer want to have, and has this as your default. When this happens, you're now with this new behavior. This is your new you. When you've created this amazing person that you've worked so hard and invested in to become this new self that you've wanted so bad, let's say 2 years down the track, something triggers you. You become so conscious of it that the trigger, your mind brings you back to your unconscious mind of map A that no longer exists, but it was It was a thought mechanism that was already built in your system. And so map B can come along and say, no, we've worked so hard for map B and we're going to stick to map B and we're not going to move. We're going to stay here. And you become so aware of this that you no longer fall back into your old traits, because you've interfered and interrupted that behavior so many times that you're now map B. And the reason why this happens with a lot of people that do therapy or self-healing is that they don't realize that they need to actually go through a 6 cycle. So you need to do the cycle 6 times. So the 21-day cycle needs to happen 6 times to override map A and keep it at map B. In saying that, so when a client does come to me and say, well, look, Sarah, you know, I'm falling a little bit behind. I did so well. What's going on? I just bring it back to the awareness that you should thank your unconscious mind. Thank your body for bringing to your awareness that there is an alarm, there is a bell, just like any ambulance that goes by for an emergency. That's what's going on in your head, because it's worked so hard over the years and the